Well, welcome back. What a delightful discussion. Legacy point number one. Here's the question. What's filling your child's mind? Now, last week we talked about what worship is. And worship is telling God, I love you, after we hear God saying, I love you to us. And worship is a lifestyle and it's a routine. And worship is also something that our kids catch from us. Worship's very, very important, but the beginning of worship comes from what it is that we've filled our minds with and how that expresses itself through our hearts. So the question is this: what are we filling our children's minds with? And it does remind me of Colossians 3, 1 and 2. It says, set your minds on things above. It also says, set your heart on things above. Well, here's the challenge that we have in today's world. It's the influence of television and movies, media. And oftentimes it fills our children's minds. And before we go any further, we want to caution ourselves about that fact. And as parents, we are encouraging you to protect your child's minds by setting limits. The limits will be how much time are you going to let your child watch TV or movies? Also, what's the content of them? And then also, where is the location? Where's the location of the television? So let's talk about that for a few minutes, can we? Tell us, what does it mean to limit the time for television?
Well, first of all, a 4-year-old's mind is like a sponge. They're constantly learning from everything that they experience. Kids between the ages of 3 and 5 are at a critical stage in their development. The amount of time that a 4-year-old spends watching in front of the TV screen impacts the development of the neural networks in their brain. So time does need to be limited. Kids in America, ages 2 to 17, watch on average, how many hours of TV do you think a week? 25 is the average
Wow.
number of hours in a week that the kids
That's kinda
ages 2
scary.
through 17 watch television in America.
That's a full part-time, better than a part-time job.
They spend more time watching television than anything in their week except sleeping. And another statistic which is really startling is almost 1 in 5 kids watch more than 44 hours of TV a week. So American parents need to do a better job of helping their kids, I guess, fill their lives and time with something else. Now, that's not to say that TV is all bad. There are certain kinds of educational programming that actually increase a child's preschool kids' reading readiness. But cartoons and other kinds of entertainment that are designed just for kids often actually decrease their reading readiness. So it's not just how much time they watch, but what they watch. One other thing that we need to say about this: if we limit our kids' TV watching so that they are used to having it turned off at disciplined times, then when it's time for us to have a devotion, they're not going to be resenting the devotion for intruding into a time that they'd otherwise be watching television. So it's just good in so many ways for us to limit the amount of time our kids watch TV.
And not only limit time, but consider this. Limit the content, manage it. Here is a truth. All of TV is value driven. That means that every program or commercial is trying to influence you towards a value. Now, the value might mean, I want you to feel dissatisfaction unless you get this toy or this cereal. Now, that's a value. But if you get it, then you're going to be happy. Well, that's a value too. But at a certain point, some of these messages get to sink in, and are they helpful? The children are forming their worldview at this time. And is their worldview going to be shaped by the standards of this world? Now, we're not saying commercials are bad and television is bad, but you can see that without discernment, it can be one of the most prominent influencers in shaping our children's worldview. And let's not let that happen for the sake of their worship life with God, for the sake of what we're going to fill their minds with and their worldview with. So limit the content. Did you know that in 1 hour of programming, a child will see 16 minutes of commercials? Unless, of course, you're in my house, because then you're going like this. That's especially what guys do. But what are those commercials saying? There's a question.
And when you multiply that out times the 25 hours a week, it's 6 hours of commercials a week. That's a lot of time for those folks to be telling our kids what they should want and what they should think. And the third kind of limit we want to place on television is the location. Did you know that 25% of babies in America already have a TV in their room? 25%.
Let's just monitor that there's a sensitivity behind that location. There's some certain liabilities and cautions if we're going to have a TV in a child's room. So tell us about that.
Some of the things we'd like to say are, once the child is able to start turning the TV on and off and deciding what channels they're watching, it's like inviting those folks, whoever they are, to have whatever influence that you want over your child's mind. And here's the question you want to ask yourself. When my child is 14 or 15 and moving toward that, into those defiant times, when they want to watch a certain program and our family values won't allow that, is it possible that they might be pushing to do that in their room? And do you want to fight the battle then of removing the television from their room if they are not willing to back away? And that does happen in godly, faithful homes with loving parents whose kids love them, and it can happen. So this might be the time for you to consider taking the TV out of your child's room. If not now, when? And just give that some good hard thinking and consideration. Roger and I would suggest that now is the time to make this decision. No TV or internet connection in your child's room. Not now, not later, not ever while your child is living in your home. Because you can't control when and what they're watching when it's in their room. And you don't want to be looking over their shoulder all the time. Rather, have it out in a public place where you can observe it in a natural way without being intrusive. That's our recommendation to you. 44% of kids report that they watch different programs when their parents are not around. So if it's in their room, what's the logical consequence? So one other thing, when your kids are watching TV away from you, they're not with you. And those media are very enticing. They can be habit forming and even addictive. So when your TV is away from you, then your child will more likely be drawn away from you, and that's not always a good thing. So that's the challenge we place before you. And now here's the question.
Well, that seems very much countercultural, maybe a little bit radical. Those are decisions that you've got to make as parents. But the point will be very plain before you that this requires discernment and being intentional, so that you're monitoring, you're responsible to protect what goes in your child's mind, particularly in your own home. So, I think this is worth talking about. You think so? So, you're the ones that set the standard in your home, and tell us about those limits that you do place in your home, and maybe the ones you'd like to. Let's talk about that for the next couple of minutes.